I don't really have much of an opening statement. Like, ready to get back at it. The Big Ten's unforgiving, right? You have a good game, and you get a chance to think about it or celebrate it or dwell on it for a couple hours, and then reality sets in that your next game is against a top 15 opponent and a team that was tied for the lead in the Big Ten until last night. So short-term memory. Whether you win, whether you lose, you move on to the next thing pretty quickly, and you get ready for what's next. And that's what we're trying to do. We got to get back, get focused, and start our preparation for Wisconsin.
Hey, Mike, how's it going?
Good.
You've talked in the past about Seth Lundy matching up with the best wings and sort of going minute for minute with a lot of those guys. Is Johnny Davis sort of one of those matchups you expect that to be the case with?
Yeah, he's a pretty good player. We need like Seth will be matched up on him, but I think we need everybody to be ready. Like he does such a good job of attacking all the time, whether it's off the dribble, whether it's in the post, whether it's off cuts, whether it's going to the offensive glass. Like, he puts a lot of pressure on the people that are guarding him, but he puts a lot of pressure on your whole team. So, like, he's a total team-focused guy, right? Like, Seth may be matched up on him, but everybody should know what he's trying to do because he's that good, right? It's not like I don't think anybody ever plays one-on-one defense where it's like, that's my matchup and it's just me and him, and when they catch it, there's four guys standing on the other side of the court and they get to play one-on-one like it's the NBA All-Star game back in the day or something. Like, we need help. Like, he's going to need help. As good of a defender as you may be, you're going to need help against a guy like him. So our whole team needs to be locked in on what he does.
Hey, Micah, how you doing?
Great.
From your experience, I guess, in the conference, what do you think the blueprint is to being successful on the road in the Big Ten, and where do you guys kind of line up in relationship to that right now?
Yeah, I think, first of all, you have to be resilient on the road. Like, things aren't always going to go your way. You're playing in some of these environments that are great environments, and we didn't get a chance to play at Wisconsin last year. I guess nobody played in front of anybody last year, but 2 years ago, and even my first stint at Purdue, going there, like, that's a fun place to play. Like, they have great fans, and they're right there on top of you, and it's a fun environment. But you have to be resilient because things aren't always going to go your way. And you watched the game last night, Wisconsin, Illinois, and they didn't make shots. But they gave themselves a chance by just hanging around and staying in the game. I think that's what you kind of have to do. You can't turn the ball over. You can't beat yourself on the road, right? You can't turn the basketball over like we've done at times in the past. You can't give up a bunch of offensive rebounds, like we did against Iowa, right? Like, you can't get off to a slow start, like we did against Indiana. Like, those are the things that kind of doom you, right? Like, you think about those. Like, you're playing well or you're playing evenly at Michigan State, and then they go on a run of transition defense, or your transition defense breaks down. They open the game up. Iowa, you're playing well, right? They get a bunch of offensive rebounds, and they go on a run. Indiana just blitzed you from the start because you weren't ready to go. Like, all those things factor in. And you don't have to play perfect, but you have to be resilient when things don't go your way and kind of stay together. And you can't beat yourself. I know that much. That's an old Belichick kind of, you can't win until you keep from losing. Like, keeping from losing is not turning the ball over. Keeping from losing is getting people off the glass. Keeping from losing is following the scouting report, following the plan, and sticking to it, when things are going good and things are going bad.
Hey, Micah. Seth has had some up and downs this season offensively. What have you seen Seth does best on the offensive end of the court?
I think, when you saw the last game, what he did and how he played, he was pretty decisive, like, when he caught the basketball. We've tried to talk a lot here recently. We've tried to focus on our offense and getting better and crisper in terms of how we move the ball and what we're doing, how we're attacking off different closeouts or whatever it may be. And we've spent a lot of time doing it. I'd give a lot of credit. Coach Fairley's been with that kind of group of guys, with Seth and Miles and Dallion and those guys, and you're kind of seeing the benefits of the work that they've been doing where, Seth caught the ball and there was no, he was making 0.5 decisions, right? Shoot it, drive it north-south, or pass it. And he kind of did that against Iowa. I thought there weren't extra dribbles that he didn't need. He was decisive in what he did, and he attacked and he got to the rim. And, our spacing was a little better, so it helped him get to the rim and finish without extra help there. So, if he can continue to do that, really be focused on making quick decisions, but making the right decision each time, I think he's in a good spot. He's been really locked into guarding people, and it's kind of taken his mind sometimes off of other things, right? You're not thinking about if you've missed a shot, if, you got to get back on defense and guard like one of the best players in the country, right? You don't have time to think about the other things. So now you're not dwelling on past mistakes or missed shots or anything else. You're just focused on getting back and getting a stop on the other end. I think that's helped him as well.
And Micah, I think it was after the Rutgers game, you talked about showing the players a screenshot of the way that one of your Celtics teams was playing defense. How often do you kind of dip into your NBA experience to communicate things like that? And do you think showing the guys the Celtics doing something might resonate more than one of your Purdue or Butler teams doing something?
Yeah, I think you kind of use that more. I think if Jason Tatum can do it, I can do it, right? They probably don't even know who the guys on our Butler team even were, or even the Purdue teams. You try and show them. I try and show them some of that stuff as much as possible when it's relevant. And our guards were watching film yesterday of some different pick and roll things and how to attack them in different ways, or just some techniques. We'll bring it out and show them, right? I'm gonna do something that Kyrie Irving's doing, right? Or I might not be able to do it the same way, but the technique that he's trying to use, or the way that somebody's attacking a certain thing, it kind of helps. It kind of helps me get my point across, right? When you see the best do it, it's okay, well, maybe that is the right way that we should do it. So we use it a good amount in terms of showing it. I think it's helpful. I think it's helpful, even if we're in recruiting or something, and we show them different things of how we want to play, and then, if they see a certain team doing it, and then, our team's doing something like that, it all helps. Those are the best players in the world, so they help reinforce a lot of points.
Hey, Micah, appreciate your time. Miles has been somebody who's been in and out of the starting lineup, but it seems like you've kind of used him as a utility knife, kind of small ball lineups, shooter lineups, whatever. How has your relationship with him kind of grown, and how has your usage of him evolved throughout the season?
Yeah, you know what, he's been so good at just kind of doing what we've needed. At different times, whether he's, come off the bench or started, and he's kind of always ready to just do his role. And when you have guys like that, that's when you can have a successful team. If he's not starting, I can go over and talk to him about why, and he's like, cool. I'm fine with that. Hey, I need you to start this game. Here's why, and this is why we're doing this. And he's okay with that too. So I think him being old, being an older player, been through kind of the wars in the Big Ten a little bit. He understands what we're trying to do. He understands, offensively and defensively what we're trying to do, what some of the other teams are trying to do. So he's been really helpful. And then, it really helps when he makes shots at the end of games when you need them. But He's been great. He's been great. He was a little banged up to start the season, so I don't. What you saw at the start of the season wasn't like regular Miles. All right, it took a little bit of time for him to get to where he is, but I think since Christmas, he's been great for us, and what he's been trying to do offensively, defensively, and everything else. And he's been a big part of kind of every win we've had. He's been a big part of it.
I would say in general, the perception has been that things have gone pretty well so far. I'm sure that there's film that gives you headaches and things like that, but by and large, you guys have played pretty well for the most part. You've won some games. You've performed well against teams that are on paper probably just better than you. It's all gone pretty well. Do you share that feeling, and what is sort of your relationship with patience in regard to making that even better?
Yeah. I don't know. I guess I share it at times, but I always feel like I don't have any patience. I guess that's what's wrong with me. It's not the only thing wrong with me. There's a lot of things wrong with me, but I don't have any patience. Like I'm like constantly focused on the now in the present, and I'll get to the future when the future comes. But like, I'm just. Like I see where we can be better. I see things that we can do that are helping us, like right now in terms of what we need to do. And like, it's almost like I said earlier, like if you don't beat yourself at certain points, like do you win that game at Iowa, right? If you get back in transition defense, you're in the game longer against Michigan State. Like now, what happens there at the end of the game? Like those are the things that. You look back on and I kind of regret or get upset about is like, let's do our job, let's focus on our job, and let's do it for 40 minutes and see what, then we'll see what happens. And we've done it for longer stretches at home, but like I want to see us put together a complete performance on the road and see what happens then. So that's where like, I'm constantly always trying to push and pry and figure out the best way for us to do that. So, I'm pleased at times, but I don't think I'm ever really satisfied with anything.
Has this been fun though? I mean,
I'm having a blast. Yeah. No, I'm having a blast. It's a lot of fun, each and every day. Like, I love the guys I work with. Like upstairs, like, there's days where I just got to walk in the GA's office and sit and talk with. Grady and Bo and JT and Mike Green and Trey and those guys, whoever's in there, just 20 minutes at a time just to laugh and relax and get away from it a little bit. Like the other guys on staff, like I love coming to work every single day, but I also love preparing and like practices, like putting together a practice plan is fun. And putting together a game plan is fun. And now let's see if we can execute it. Let's see if it's the right thing that we're trying to do. So I'm having a blast, but also like I'm so narrow-minded and focused that like there's things going on in the world that I have no idea that's happening. I did put a snow shovel or scraper in the back of my car for the first time all season, though. So I am focused and know that there's snow coming.
I know we asked you a bit about it after the game, but you've had a couple days to reflect on it. And overtime, before that shot from Miles, or even when it comes to the Keegan Murray tip-in, can you kind of take us through that huddle? Can you ever really plan for something like that to happen, or does it just kind of have to be a perfect storm?
Yeah, I don't think you can. Like, all the stuff that happens, like, you just have to regroup quickly, right? If you dwell on that tip-in, then you're not ready at the start of the next overtime. So you got to put it behind you pretty quickly and move on, because now you got to win the game again. If you're still hype and celebrating over Miles' shots, now are you ready for the next overtime? So you quickly have to change focus and get refocused, as quick as possible, right? Like, We've talked about it at times, and there have been games where we've started or had runs, and like we've celebrated, and then I don't think we've been really focused in the huddle. And the other team calls a timeout or whatever, and then they go on a run right after that, right? Like it's really similar to that. Like you think about the start of Ohio State, where we came out like guns a-blazing, there's a timeout, and then they just do the same exact thing right back to us, right? There's no, like we're still thinking about what happened instead of what's going to happen next. Like how do we focus on that? So same thing in those overtimes, just as quickly as possible, get back to here's the most important thing. And, as quickly as you can do that, the better you'll be.
Mike, I know we'd asked you in the past about rescheduling some of those non-conference games, and you said Minnesota was sort of the hang-up there. Now that that's scheduled, are there any openings that you can reschedule some of those, and are you guys trying to do that?
We looked at it. It gets harder now that the season's gone on a little bit longer. I think there was a point in time there where a bunch of teams were getting canceled and having, games weren't being played. But now most games are being played, and other conferences are trying to reschedule as well. So it makes it a little bit harder to find different opponents. I think we only had a couple of kind of open times or open weeks in the Big Ten schedule. We knew Minnesota could possibly fit into one of those, so it only left like one other game in there. And if you can do it and it makes sense for your team, I'd say do it. Like, we want to keep playing and this and that. But I think for me, like, the Big Ten kind of takes precedent. Like, I want to win Big Ten games and be prepared to win Big Ten games, unless, like, a game like that is going to help us. I don't know how much it helps you to reschedule it. So, but it's all, like, everything's on the table. Like, we've talked about it. Like, if there's a time to do it, we want to try and do it. But there's so much that goes into it with the Bryce Jordan schedule, with our women, with us, with travel, other teams. You got to find an opponent. If they would let us play a blue-white inter-squad game and count it as a win, I would schedule 3 more of those. But you got to find an opponent also. So that's where it starts to get tricky. We thought about it. We tried it. We'll keep looking at it and exploring it to see if it makes sense to do it, if we can find a date and an opponent that works for us. But we're just so locked in on trying to win Big Ten games. I don't want to do anything that takes away from that.
We're all out of time. Thank you, Coach.
Thank you, guys.